join us in welcoming Ms. Helen Zia.
Every time even in America, we had to really start at a very basic level so that people could understand our humanity. The biggest challenge as an Asian American back then, and I would say even today, is to really have people understand our backgrounds, our histories.
I think this event is really valuable because, well, I got to meet Ms. Zia, which was and is really an honor. But I think it's also really educational because through the event, I get to learn a lot about activism, journalism, and stuff like that.
It's very encouraging for me to have, speak about my experiences and just be open at TAS. I think that's one thing that I really like about it here, which is just that, it can be open without having consequence.
And I didn't grow up speaking Chinese. It was a time, when there was a lot of anti-Chinese and anti-communist. My father told my mother, don't speak Chinese to the children, because they were afraid that if we spoke Chinese, that we would be stigmatized, that we would face racism.
The idea that resonated for me with the last boat out of Shanghai was how interconnected we are and how important it is to see that we belong with each other no matter where we are, no matter who we are.
When I was a kid, I would ask my mom all the time, like, what was it like in China when you were growing up? Well, when she grew up, it was during World War II. And she had seen things or experienced things that she just didn't want to talk about. So one day I was having dinner with her and I said, gee, Mom, too bad you can't tell me anything about growing up in China. And then my mother said, all right, you want to know? I'll tell you. And so after all my life not hearing anything, it was like, what? And then she told me the story that is part of Last Boat Out of Shanghai.
I think history is not only, the stories of great figures, important people, people who are the big decision makers, but also the stories that are, from your grandmother or from your cousin or from your neighbor. Those stories matter just as much as the stories you read in the history book. So that's why I think this book is very important.
So growing up in New Jersey, I was often told, go back where you came from, and usually in a not very nice way. And what could I say? I'm here where I'm from. I knew they were telling me to go back somewhere that I had never been. So when I got to China and people actually thought I blended in and they asked me for directions, I opened my mouth, spoke the little bit of baby Chinese I could, and they immediately knew that I was a foreigner, and they were terrified. They would actually run the opposite direction. And that was another revelation, that even though people in America would say, go back where you came from, that's where I belong. Culturally, I was American.
She talked about not fitting in, maybe like both culturally and feeling like you don't look like you fit in. And I feel like that was really something that made me consider and think about, and that I'll definitely continue to think about, because I've also moved around a lot due to my dad's career. So I feel like what she said got me thinking about my own experiences.
So I grew up not really knowing about this as an exodus, and it was over the many years that I would run into other people of my generation who would say, oh, so your family came from there, were they on the last boat? My uncle, my grandparents were on the last boat, the last plane, the last train. And the thing in common was it was the last. And after a while, you sort of okay, there is no boat large enough for all those people who think that their folks were on the last boat.
Part of the conclusion was you gotta know what is beyond your comfort zone and whatever is in your community. You have to have a wide range of different experiences and build up empathy, because those are the warning signs that you may miss of things that you should be fixing way before way beforehand. You don't want to realize, oh, now it's a problem when it only affects you. And that's not how we want to raise our TAS students to be. Yeah.
So for me, it was realizing I actually belonged in America, and if I wanted to do something in my lifetime, and suddenly it was like, what are we going to do about this? Should we speak up? And so for the first time in Asian American history, people of different Asian backgrounds came together for the first time to say, we have to stand up against hate. We have to stand up against hate violence against any group, not just Asian Americans, and came together and stood side by side with Black Americans, with Arab Americans, with white Americans, with LGBTQ people, to say, together we have to fight against hate.